Hope you're doing well, everyone. Today I'm joined by David Blackmore from ITV and also Blowing Bubbles magazine. David, we were just talking a little bit off air about how we're both feeling today, but obviously now we're recording. How are you, mate? Are you okay?
Yeah, good. I mean, just hugely disappointed about yesterday. So often I see us rock up at, Old Trafford, and you sit there and you hope for the best, but fear the worst. And as it's been recently, it seems to be, Scott McTominay coming on in the last few minutes to pop up a winner and us leaving, having played awful, losing 1-0, or anything like that. But I actually was really surprised, especially when I saw the lineup yesterday. I thought, oh, okay, we're going 5-4-1. We're going to just sit back. We're going to try and hit them on the counter. And then we start playing. And I'm thinking after the first 10 minutes, well, we're going toe-to-toe with them. We're really going for it, especially with Ben Johnson, who seems to be a completely new player at the moment, playing a little bit further forward. And then, just when you think that we keep applying the pressure, they go up there and score 1-0, and you think, oh, it just sucker punch. And then same with Emerson. I don't really know what's happened to him confidence-wise, but his confidence in his ability to hit the target seemed to go completely amiss yesterday. And then you just knew as soon as they went back up top after he missed that chance that they were going to score for 2-0. And I mean, the third, on the Blowing Bubbles WhatsApp group, somebody was like, we were all trying to guess who was going to score the third. A lot of people had their money on Rashford, and then when they scored that. And also, I also felt that Man United team are awful. They really aren't that great. The fact that we were able to go up there, go toe-to-toe with them for as long as we did, and even at like 2-0, still looked like the more likely team to score. We were still pushing, and even at 3-0, look, game over at that point, but we were still trying to salvage something from the game in terms of just, consolation goal or whatever. I was really proud of the boys. I really was. And I just, Garnacho celebration, almost like taking the copy and kudos. I was a bit like, oh, that is so... there was no word to describe. I just thought, I just really don't like this Man United team whatsoever.
No, I'm not a fan of them, and just like how the mighty have fallen, eh? You know what I mean? When they've got to celebrate like that, skin on these, like against the little West Ham. That's what I found quite funny. And but yeah, I know what you mean. It was one of those performances where like I was proud of them because I actually thought we played well overall. I thought we were the better team. I thought Man United. I thought that scoreline was just such a unfair reflection actually of the game. But it does highlight a bit of an issue for West Ham, of course, because we're now two bad results now back to back. We've only got a point from Bournemouth and Man United. We've got Arsenal next, which is going to be very, very tough, you can imagine, especially with the result they've just had against Liverpool. It's not been a great January, has it, really? Good start to the year for West Ham, let's be honest. We've gone out of the FA Cup to Bristol City over 2 legs, which cost us about 4 injuries as well during the process. And we don't really seem to be playing overly well. Although Man United performance aside, the performances have dipped a little bit. I'm hoping that we can take something from that Man United performance. But I like you, mate. It was one of those. It was. I kind of knew we were always going to lose that game. I could kind of just sense it. I didn't think we were going to win it. Even though we were playing well, I was pretty. Once we got to half time at 1-0, I was quite sure we would lose, and I was quite sure that we were going to lose. They were going to score a couple more goals. I just got that feeling. We're not clinical enough at the moment, which is a bit of a shame. But going back, actually, David, to the Bournemouth game, I mean, that was quite a... I think that sort of took the wind out of our sails a little bit as fans, because obviously we're going into this sort of period now where you're thinking, go on, let's go for the push now. We've got, we've got 17 games that period we had left to go for the Premier League season. And you thought, go on, Bournemouth at home is a game you should be winning. But it was a very lacklustre performance. And I think we have to talk about Calvin Phillips as well. 2 games, obviously, in a West Ham shirt, 2 mistakes and looking a little bit vulnerable. What's your feelings on Mr. Phillips?
Yeah. When you look at it, in the history books, they're going to say he's had 2 games. He's made 2 mistakes, and it's cost 2 goals. And I think there is that one school of thought that you look at it from that point of view. I actually thought in the Bournemouth game, mistake aside, and it was kind of a carbon copy of the mistake he made at Old Trafford as well, in terms of receiving the ball and not really seeming clear as to what he was going to do with it, albeit, it just... a similar kind of mistakes. I actually thought against Bournemouth he played quite well. I think Alvarez was quite good in both those games, but I actually think Phillips did quite well in terms of going to get the ball, his distribution. He had a few passes where he switched it from one side to the next. I think him coming on at Old Trafford is not the most inspirational of substitutions in the sense of, oh, great, so we're bringing on kind of a defensive-minded midfielder to try and take the game to Man United. Yeah, that's going to be great. And it was unfortunate, that mistake. It really was. I think probably shows of lack of match sharpness and awareness, and just, getting your mind, knowing where you need to be when, and the physicalities of the Premier League. I did think with him coming in that we were signing a player who was going to be quite fresh, because let's face it, he might not have played many minutes in the Premier League, but he's still going to be trained with all the players. He's still going to be playing practice matches. He's still, aside from getting minutes in the Premier League, he's been doing everything else. So he was going to be in good nick, and he's not going to have had half a season of draining, physicality like, the likes of Souček get towards the end of the season. So I've been excited about him. I thought he did, a mistake aside, I thought he did well against Bournemouth. I was quite surprised when he was taken off. I think he was showing being particularly leggy, and I think it was just disappointed at Old Trafford. But then it's one of those situations where you're brought in as a sub, and it's sometimes you just instantly get into the flow of the game. He never really got into the flow of the game yesterday, whereas I feel like maybe had he been starting, then he would have done. But you talked about the January side of things. You got to remember as well that thrown into the mix of that, you've got the Brighton performance at home, which was awful as well, and doesn't really feel like it was January, but it was. And then Sheffield United, really, that should have been a win for us. And you look at that run of games, Brighton at home, they weren't really particularly in good form, although I think a lot of fans at the start of the season, if they said you're going to have 4 points from Brighton, would have taken it. So I think you kind of do that. I didn't think we looked too bad against Sheffield United. I think we were very comfortable. I thought, apart from Soufal's madness at the end of some refereeing decisions, we would have left that. I mean, we didn't play particularly well. And you talking about us being clinical, we probably were quite clinical against Sheffield United, because although we were comfortable, we didn't actually create much. And I think that has been such a token of West Ham's playing recently, is that we will sit back, we will soak up the atmosphere, we'll create one or two chances, and we'll take one. And we have been really clinical. But and against Bournemouth, we didn't really create anything. I think there was one cross that came in from James Ward-Prowse in the first half, and obviously the penalty, but that doesn't really count as a chance to create. We didn't really create anything. And I also felt yesterday that we kept finding ourselves in wide positions, and the players were kind of hesitant to cross the ball in. And I'm trying to work out why that is, because presumably the way that they set up was a particular game plan, so they must have been working on it in training, and it's almost like they worked on everything but the final third. And it's the amount of times that Emerson was in a position to cross it, and he hesitated, and we came back into Kudus, and he kind of tried to run through. I was like, I don't really understand what we're doing there. And the game was, if we'd had Paquetá, we would have won that so easily. I'm not sure Antonio would have made a difference, but I think having Bowen out on the wing would have made a difference for us. And I don't know what you think about Bowen up top, Mark, but he does a job. And when we're able to release him, you put your pals on him scoring. He should have scored yesterday. Should have shot a lot earlier. But it's kind of, he's doing okay without actually doing anything spectacular, like perhaps Antonio would be if he's on top form, Yeah,
it's difficult. I mean, as you say, he's so clinical, Bowen, and he offers so much. I do feel like we're not rotating him or switching play enough with him, like in terms of his position. I really wish we'd do that a bit more rather than continually play him as a striker, because you've got the opportunity to do that. You've got Kudus who could play up front effectively for a period. You could, and this is why I'm really frustrated, actually, because when we'll come to this in a minute regarding January, it's like if we had another striker option, at least then it would give you the opportunity then to say, right, bring a striker on. Bowen, you now go out onto the right. Kudus, you go on the left. We've got our striker. I don't know why we don't really have that option. I know we've got Antonio coming back, but for the life of me, I do not understand why we didn't go for Armando Broja, who went to Fulham on loan for the rest of the season. I don't understand why we deemed that as too much of a risk. I don't understand who does our risk assessments at this football club, but it's very bizarre that the club have gone, no, he's a bit too risky, that one, to get a striker in on loan. You know what I mean? It was like, well, it's just a loan. I mean, if it didn't work out, if he was out of crap, then at the end of the season, we'd send him back to Chelsea, move on. But I think it's
I think
left us
that I
short.
think the big thing is we've had 2 seasons now where we've been in a good position come January, and we're all screaming out for fresh legs and to kick on and to try and secure ourselves a European place. Now, we ended up having to go, we ran out of steam and ended up getting the Europa League place when the Champions League options were on if we invested properly in January. And then the season in between, we were struggling in the relegation fight. And, we start to look into, we bring in like Danny Ings, and so it's very much a case, I feel like, from Sullivan's perspective, well, we're doing all right. We're sixth.
Yeah,
Why do we need to get new legs in,
It is. It's a lack of ambition. It's a lack of hunger from the club. I mean, we'll talk about it before we talk about the big talking point, which is going to be David Moyes, because obviously that's the big kind of conversation that's surrounding the club at the moment. I do feel like there's a lot to answer for in terms of the January transfer window. I don't understand what our game plan was. I'm really struggling with it. I don't know how a football club that could be sixth in the league, that talks about and being ambitious and wanting to kick on and all these kind of things. We've got this Tim Steidton in place. We've got Rob Newman. We've got Mark Noble. They're all busy working. They've got this big scouting network, etc., etc. And then somehow we come out of January in a much weaker position. I really think that, and we are in a weaker position. There's no two ways about it. They'll try and spin it and say, well, I think they're going to try and say the line of using the academy players and say, well, we've got these great players coming through, but Moyes doesn't use them, so it's just totally irrelevant. He's never going to put on 18-year-olds during Premier League games. We know he won't do that. He won't. That's just not going to happen. And we've sold effectively. Yeah, Saïd Benrahma's effectively sold. We know that he's unlikely to play for the club again. Fabio Fornals. Don't get me wrong, those players' times at the club are up. I was happy to say, yeah, let's move them on. But only if they have their players coming in. Surely to God, I can't understand the logic of letting go of players that Moyes was using. Benrahma was a player that was effectively Moyes' go-to sub in most this season. And we've now lost him and we haven't replaced him. And I am struggling with January again. And like you say, I think the fans, we get very frustrated. I don't know what the game plan is. I really struggle to see why we've got such a short-sighted thinking. And like I say, the Brozier one just baffles me. A player that was our number one target, let's not forget, 2 years ago, I think we spent all of summer trying to get him. And I think we ended up getting Scamacca instead because we couldn't get that one over the line. Desperately wanted Brozier. Brozier was the man that Moyes identified as he was the man to lead the club. All right, and I appreciate in that time he's had a knee injury and he's just come back, but he's fit. He's playing Premier League football. He's available on loan for the rest of the season. No obligation to buy. And we've gone, no, we'll leave that one. Let's just leave it. I honestly, I'm really struggling with it. And what's your feelings then on January? Are you feeling quite deflated from it? Or do you think actually West Ham did some decent business?
We did good business in the sense of getting rid of Kehrer and Fornals and Benrahma and, presumably opening up the wage bill and lessening that on there and lowering it. But to then not bring anyone in, apart from Phillips, although maybe he's got the wages of all three of them combined, I don't know. But it just when I saw the story initially about Benrahma and Fornals not going because we didn't, computer says no, that kind of thing. My initial thoughts were, what's happened here is that we've gone into a situation where we've tried to get other players in. We've not been able to get those across the line. So we're not going to get these across the line. And rather than just saying, okay, the deal's off, we then sort of blame the computers and hope that will get away with it. And then then the FIFA have come around and said, well, actually, and it's all been pushed through. But that was my gut feeling when I did it, that perhaps they had someone lined up and it hasn't come off. And I just think it's I agree with you. It's madness to get rid of Fornals and Benrahma, both players that would be coming off the bench at the very least. If not starting. I mean, some games, if we got injuries or whatever, we just seem to be an injury or two away now from, not having anyone to look to. But then having said that, seeing Danny Ings playing in that space behind the striker of Sheffield United, I was a bit like Ben Johnson was that game. I was like, oh, okay, so maybe we've found something a bit different here. But it just seems, it baffles me that Moyes has definitely got to the stage where we're evolving the squad and he wants to get Fornals, he wants to get rid of Benrahma, he wants to bring in new players that suit his system more, and he's got rid of them and we've not brought anyone in.
It's crazy, isn't it?
We're at a point where we're 6th, 7th in the league We're still in the Europa League, and you think that it must be hugely frustrating for Moyes to not have those players at his disposal, because as much as I'm sure that he was wanting to bring in players, I guess fundamentally he's not the one that's actually digging into his wallet to bring them in. So it comes down to those above him. But it does seem mad that we can't have this scouting system and we can't find somebody who's a younger Antonio. If that's the style of player that Moyes thinks works in his system, surely there are boxes that they can tick. They could just probably go into Champ Manager or Football Manager or whatever it is and just tick these certain boxes that they need in terms of physicality, speed, and surely they will bring up options to scout. Because when we played, I can't remember if it was Genk or Ghent, but they had a striker who was very similar to Antonio, and he was like 21, 22.
I do, and I do. I was going to mention him, and you're laughing at me. If you can remember his name, I can't quite remember. Can't recall it. The little guy, and he was very, very powerful striker. And I think he's just been sold, and I think he's sold for something like, I think it was like €9 million, €10 million. You're like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Why have we let that go? We watched what he did against us. He literally fit our system perfectly. He's powerful, fast, good guy for goal. Yeah, really, really confusing, mate. I'm struggling with it, West Ham at the moment. I really do. It's a shame because we did some really good business in the summer. We handled the Declan Rice sale very, very well.
Yeah.
We brought in the players that I felt, let's be honest, we couldn't have done much better. James Ward-Prowse has been brilliant since he signed. Although he's fallen slightly off a little bit, you'd imagine at this stage, but that's fine. It happens. But he's been overall a very good player for us. Mohamed Kudus has been excellent. Mavropanos has been a pretty decent signing, albeit a couple of mistakes, but he's been pretty good. I've been really happy, and obviously Edson Alvarez, of course, as well, been brilliant. But this January, I don't know what it is with January in West Ham. We're not very good at it. I know we brought in Bowen in January a few years ago, and I think Souček was one as well that we brought through. But January's not very good for this football club. For some reason, we are not good at identifying players. We don't seem to get the business done right. And what annoys me as well is that we heard from ex-WHU employee, right at the beginning of the window, that the left wing was our priority position. We've got to be getting, and we all knew it. All West Ham fans knew we've got to get that left wing sorted out. And we didn't get it sorted out. We hunted two players that they then found out on literally the 28th, 29th of the month. Can't really afford them now. Turned out, Jota's wages were too high. It was too much complication. Well, you should have found that out ages ago. Why that's taken right to the end of the month, I don't understand. And the same with Ibrahim Osman, wasn't it, that we were after? Turns out that we were talking to the wrong agent, apparently, and there was more complication. It's just typical West Ham, really poor strategy there. And I'm disappointed. And I think, unfortunately, already we're starting to look at this squad thinking, God, we're not thin. Like you've said, David, like if we get a couple of injuries in this squad, we are in big, big trouble. It's great for the academy boys, don't get me wrong. I do like to see the fact the academy boys are going to be given a bit more opportunities around the senior squad. But we know David Moyes, he's not a big advocate in risking younger players. He just won't do it. Like he will always play it safe. If he's got, we've seen it, haven't we? How many times have we seen him have options on the bench and we've gone, go on, give the young lad a go? He won't. He'll always go with a Danny Ings. He'll always go with his old trusted guard. He always will. He always seems to look at experience over potential. I think that's just how he operates. And it's frustrating. We need to talk about him though. It's a big talking point, David Moyes, and this is going to be rumbling on until he signs a new deal, which apparently is not too far away. But David Moyes, mate, what's your feelings on the situation?
At the start of the season, I would say that I was very much in the Moyes in camp, in the sense that he's won us the European trophy. And it's interesting actually seeing it on social media, seeing the two sides. It's so divisive at the moment. And those that are Moyes in say one thing and stick to it, and then use certain results and performances to back up what they're saying. And then literally, like, those that are out are saying the same things and putting their own spin on it. And I feel like I was Moyes in, and I feel like the Everton game at home, I was a bit like, I feel like I felt like yesterday Moyes actually took the handbrake off a little bit, actually, in terms of letting players actually just go out there and express themselves. And arguably that left us a bit vulnerable, potentially. But then the Everton game, the Bournemouth game, the Brighton game, there's a lot of games this season that have been absolutely dire. And the question that I keep asking myself is, do I want to watch a team play as badly as we have done. Like, let's not get, against Tottenham as well. We weren't great against them until we were clinical, took our chances, and you leave with a win, and you just think, is that the price of successful football this season, in that you're absolutely dire to watch, but you're gonna do enough to first and foremost stay in the Premier League, and like this season, put ourselves in a good position to push on for European football. And I think that is the question that the fan base want to ask themselves, because I'm sure I was watching the FA Cup game between Norwich City and Liverpool, and I can remember Norwich, when they were last up in the Premier League, they played some great football. They got hammered 5-0 every week, and it's like, we haven't got enough caliber in the squad, and we haven't got the depth in the squad to be able to, or the quality to be able to play that football that I think we all want. I think that the fine line is between it all is that it's not so much that I think West Ham fans want us to all play expansive football, free flowing, all of that. I mean, it would be great. It'd be great to see. I think it's just when you're playing Bournemouth at home, to actually have more than like one or two shots on target, to actually feel like we're taking the game to them, to actually, and that's probably why we're missing Paqueta, in the sense that there's not a player who was winning out there to make a mistake, knowing that he'll make two mistakes, but the third ball he puts through is going to create a chance. And obviously that's not Moyes' fault that he's out injured, but equally we don't have anyone else out there that, perhaps kudos aside, that is going to create those moments. And it's just thinking, from my perspective, first of all, is there another manager out there who's going to be able to take this team of players on, develop them, add some of his own players into the mix, and take us on to the next level? Or are we going to be in a situation where we get rid of Moyes, we bring in someone new, dynamic, it's going to be great, new era, like Pellegrini. We have perhaps one good season, or even 6 months, we're in a relegation fight, we sack him and we bring Moyes back again. I just don't know where I do have a lot of sympathy with a lot of the supporters who are Moyes out. That I have been listening and reading a lot more of what they're saying about it, and I do have a lot of sympathies with them. I feel like I still am the Moyes in camp for now, because I think, and from Sullivan's point of view, we're not going to get relegated this season. We're through to the knockout stages of European football. Coming into the season, we finish 10th and we get to the semi-final of Europa League. Even with the turgid football that we've seen, I still think that Moyes will stay because of that. And I have a lot of sympathy and support with those at Moyes in that are saying he's actually done a good job when he's here, in terms of where the places that we finished and what we've achieved and what we've won. So, yeah, I don't know. There are some people that are very firmly in and out. I still feel like I'm perhaps, Bournemouth game, I was like, Moyes out. And then Man United game, I was a bit like, oh, okay, there is a progression there. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's very difficult. I mean, I don't think it's a fair question, actually, when people say to you, are you David Moyes in or out? Because you need to know what the alternative is, surely. Because if someone said to you, oh, yeah, I'm David Moyes out, I'll get rid of him. They go, brilliant. Okay, well, he's gone now. We brought in Neil Warnock. You go, hang on a minute. Whoa. I didn't want that. So you need to kind of know what you're getting, I think. It's almost like if I said to you, do you want to go on your holiday next year? Because I've got another one for you. And you go, you can ditch it and I'll send you somewhere else. But I'm not telling you where it is. You're probably unlikely to take you know what I mean? You're going to go, well, I need to know what the alternatives are. And that's why I think it is a little bit harsh in the Moyes debate, because we don't know. And let's be honest, there isn't really a candidate. That I don't see anyone that's obvious that's going to be coming to West Ham. Like, it just isn't there. I don't know who the club's going to bring in. That's what worries me. I don't see the obvious candidate. I know is it Arne Slot we've been linked with, and a couple of other managers, Will Steele, but he's very young, so it's unlikely that the club would take a gamble there. I mean, from my understanding of it, and what I think we all deep down know, is he will be given another contract. I'm pretty certain of that. The club, at the end of the day, if you're a club owner like David Sullivan, at the end of the day, like most other football club owners, they're looking at results, really. They're going to be looking at their spreadsheets, and they're getting their graphs up at the end of the season going, right, well, we're in the Premier League. Yeah, that's fantastic. Oh, God, blimey, we've got in Europe. They're doing well. And yet they're going to see all the pluses and the fact we're doing well financially. David Moyes doesn't spend an awful lot of money. He doesn't, he's not horrendous. We're not in a bad position financially. So I actually don't see how he can't be given another deal. I don't know. It'd be very strange for a football club to have all of this data in front of them and go, yeah, we're going to call it a day with this fella. We're going to move on. I just don't see it, because let's be honest, style of football is probably not the top of their list. Let's be honest. As a club owner, are you really going to give a shit? Really? When people go, yeah, we don't like them, we're not playing enough good football. They go, yeah, but we're winning, mate. I don't care. We're where we want to be. I'm happy with the numbers at the moment. So I'd be very, very surprised if David Moyes is let go, unless, of course, we go on a slump now to the end of the season and really fall away, then possibly. But I don't think we will. I think we've got enough about us to get enough results this season, possibly to get maybe a European space. I still think we're within that hunt.
Could you imagine if we get the Conference League again for next year, like
Do
4
you know
seasons
what?
of European football on the bounce?
I would actually like that. I was thinking about that, funny enough, before we came to do the show, because I'm a bit annoyed at the moment, like most West Ham fans, because I feel like we've got a great opportunity this season. Another January's hit us where we had an opportunity possibly to get a Champions League spot. You know, because top 5 this season could be Champions League football. And you just feel that we've not grasped the ball by the horns at all. We've not done that. We've not gone, yeah, go on, let's go. Let's try and get that 5th spot. It's almost like you said, we've played it safe. We've gone, it'd be all right. We've got enough. You know what I mean? That's how the club have kind of done, taking it, I think. But then there was a part of me thinking, yeah, but if we got the Champions League, don't get me wrong, it'd be amazing, very exciting and all that. But there's a part of me thinking, but how would we fare in it? Probably not great. You know, we might get out of the group. That's probably the best we're going to get. I don't think we go much further than that. Whereas a part of me thought, well, do you know what? I wouldn't mind another run at the Conference League, because we're quite good at that. You know what I mean? I would happily take that. Absolutely take any form of European football next season. And I think we're well within that hunt. But regards to David Moyes, I am frustrated with him, but at the same time, it's hard to deny that he's been good for the club. You can't say he hasn't been. He's delivered. You know, he's kept us up a couple of times now. He's got us into the top 6, or the top 7, wasn't it, on back-to-back occasions. He's then got us in Europe now, possibly 3 times on the spin, and now possibly even a 4th time this season. It is a very, very good record, but I totally understand why people are getting frustrated. Like you say, you watch these performances and you do question how long this can go on for, because fans are going to get fed up with it, and I'm certainly getting fed up with it. But you know, it's not. I don't think it's all doom and gloom as people sort of make out. Like it's all dire. It isn't always bad. Like as you say, the Man United performance wasn't bad at all. We played some lovely football. We were up for it. I think people just want to see a bit more of that, a bit more, especially when you're at home against lower sides. I mean, the Bournemouth performance was so poor, so flat, and you think that, and it can be very frustrating. But much like you, I'm a bit divided. If someone said to me tomorrow, Xavi Alonso wants the West Ham job, he's waiting in the wings, he's agreed the deal and he wants to come in, I would say yes, let's get rid of David Moyes, let's move on from this. But I'm not going to say David Moyes out if I don't know who the alternative. And as I say, at the moment, I don't see any alternative. I don't see anyone that stands out as an obvious candidate. Anyone that springs to mind for you, David, that if you could, in a realistic term, obviously I've just sort of jumped, said, I'm assuming Pep Guardiola probably don't fancy the West Ham job at the moment. But if there's an obvious candidate, is anyone out that jumps out to you that you think, yeah, that's the one I want instead? Or are you kind of,
well,
like me?
I had a lot of sympathy with Graham Potter when he was at Chelsea, because I really feel like there's a lot of managers these days that don't get the chance. And if you look at the West Ham, I think the vast majority of the players that are now playing in our team are all Moyes signings, I think, Antonio aside. So we've actually, despite not thinking about it, we actually have entered this kind of Moyes era in terms of he's come in and he's molded this squad and this side into his image, and he's been given the time, albeit because he's achieved, so therefore he has been given more time. I would be very interested to see. I really enjoyed that Brighton team playing under Potter. Don't think he got a fair crap of the whip of it at Chelsea. I think he comes in, given chance to work with the squad that we currently have, and then I think maybe given some funds to then bolster it, and you look at it as a project, and if we just commit to the fact that we may finish 16th for a couple of seasons while we're sort of getting it, I think I would like to see that. It's just I don't think managers get more than 2 years now. Really, I feel like they need to. Yeah. It's such a Moyes is there aren't this Pep Guardiola because of how long he's how much he's achieved and succeeded. But I just don't feel like you're going to get managers now that are going to remain at a club for a very long time. And I think Moyes is testament to that, the fact that no matter how long he's been at the club over the 2 spells, all the time he's been under pressure. He's always been one bad performance and people have been like, you're gone. And it's funny, how many games has he had where it's been very much said that, he's 1 game away from getting the sack, and we won that game and it's kind of pushed it. But, sliding doors moments. What would happen if we had lost against Nottingham Forest, when Ings scored and, we ended up rampaging against it? What have he lost that? All those kind of moments. I don't know. It's interesting just to think of that. But yeah, I think for me, Potter was one that first came to mind as soon as you mentioned, replacement. I would like to see that happen. I feel like he would be someone who could perhaps take this current group and our squad forward.
Yeah, it's not a bad shout, actually. Graham Potter isn't a bad shout. It's difficult, isn't it? And you bring up an interesting point, actually, when you say about those games where Moyes is like, yeah, this is the one, the El Sacchio and all that. I think it was Everton, wasn't it, when Lampard got sacked and all this kind of stuff. I remember these sort of games and thinking, they have to deliver for the manager. And that's where actually I think it shows the players actually do support David Moyes. I do think he has got the dressing room. I think there's always this debate that they don't, but I don't believe that is the case. From what I understand it, I think the mood around the camp's good. I think they like the manager. I don't think there's any issue in that regard. I think it's just the way we set up sometimes can be very negative, and I understand the frustration. But I think I would be personally, I'd be very stunned if he's not given a new deal. I really do. I think that it's, you can imagine there's going to be a lot of unhappy people about it because they do want to see a bit of a change at the club. And unfortunately, like you say, in regards to managers and time, that's just everywhere, isn't it? That's just the natural way football is now, and the modern world. There's just no time. I mean, I think we had a few murmurings this season from Arsenal fans, wanting Arteta out. We're nowhere near as good as last season. We're really pissed off. And you're thinking, God almighty, this is probably the best manager you've had in a long time, where you've actually started competing, and already have a bit of a dodgy run, and all of a sudden fans want him gone. So I think it's everywhere. I think that's just always going to be the case. And it'd be the same if we brought another guy in, that people will go, brilliant, we've got an expansive way of football, but they'll want to see results quickly. I don't think people would tolerate bad results for very long. So look, it's going to be an interesting debate, mate, isn't it, David? It's going to go on. And I think this is going to be a hot topic for a little while. But, as far as we understand it, from what David Moyes has said, he's got a new deal coming very soon. David, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. We want to make this actually a regular thing, don't we? We want to make this you coming onto the show, which is going to be very good. Of course, you've got Blowing Bubbles magazine. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, actually, your magazine, before you start?
Yeah. I mean, because I feel like there are still some people that don't know a huge amount about it. We started in August 2012. I used to write for Overland and Sea, and I just, no offense to Gary Firmager, but I just felt that there was a place for a different magazine that perhaps wasn't. I just felt like a lot of the writers covered the same opinions page after page, and so I wanted to launch something. My idea was it to be quite digital at the start, because that, back in 2012, that was all the rage, that people could read stuff on their iPads and stuff. And I made the kind of the error, some might say, of getting like 10,000 printed for our first game, which was Aston Villa at home in August 2012, and then off the back of that, loads of people were like, oh, so how do we get the printed copy from now on? And I was thinking, I didn't really want to sign up for printed copy. And yet, look, fast forward 12 years and, here we are, closing in now on our, we'll be probably our 150th edition. When we started, it was, we used to do it like every home game, we did come out with an issue. And then after a while, it just, when you've got a home game on a Saturday and then a Tuesday, it was just getting so hard to turn around the issues in time and get them out, and our model was very much a case of subscribers. So people that, get it through the post every month. So we switched to monthly, and it's really helped us because, the only time we have difficulties, like this week, where we're getting our February issue out, and you wait until the January transfer window slams shut, and I was like, okay, well, I'll have to update the copy for Fornells and Benrahma because they haven't gone. So okay, let's update that. And then 12 hours later, just about to send it to the printer, oh, we have gone. So it's then just, that's a difficulty you have sometimes. But the thing that I think we do quite well is that we look at that bigger picture. We take a step back and we go, okay, is the grass going to be any greener with David Moyes? We look in depth with that. The atmosphere at London Stadium, just take a look at that. Is it actually any worse than it was at Upton Park? And just looking at that rather than just the specifics of, you know, one or two games, you know.
Yeah.
Obviously, you know, you do get some issues where, you know, big issues happen and you have to discuss that in that. But, you know, I like, a lot of the readers like it because it's something that they can get every month and they can read it. And it doesn't matter if you read it on the 1st of February, the 12th of February, or the 20th of February, there's still going to be copy in there that you can be able to read. And I think that sometimes that's the issue I had with Overlander City and other fanzines. You get it going into the game, you read it on the way home, all the copies outdated, especially if it's a must-win game. Everyone's all negative, and then you win it, and you're reading this copy, you're like, well, all of that kind of goes out the window. So that's been the thing for me, just making it so that people can enjoy reading it any time of the month. And, you know, bit of history, bit of nostalgia. People love that kind of thing. We have big interviews, like you guys do as well. Big interviews with players coming up. And, you know, I still do believe that there is a demand for fanzines out there for all clubs. You know, a lot of them are going under at the moment. I know that the Guna went recently as well because they didn't get enough level subscribers, but we're doing all right at the moment. And it's good. It's just trying to, you know, people like to see people holding fanzines out on street corners, which we have done. You know, we did do it for a few seasons, but if it's a sunny Saturday game at 3:00 in the afternoon, people are very happy to come and stand and chat to you and buy a fanzine. If it's raining and it's Friday and it's an evening kickoff and it's dark, no one's going to want to stand to see it. So when print costs are as high as they are, you know, it's really just a case of, from a business perspective. I think that's what lockdown did for us, is we then had to reevaluate is it worth it, and actually put more investment in pushing that model where people get it through their door every month. And, you know, we post all around the world, which is, it blows my mind, because the postage to post something like this to Australia or America is quite a lot, really. And people are happy to pay it because it gives them a little bite. As much as, you know, the different West Ham websites are absolutely fantastic and you get live instant reaction to everything that happens, sometimes having just someone sit back and go, right, Calvin Phillips has arrived at West Ham. What does this really mean? What are the numbers? And just going a bit more in depth in those type of issues. I think people really enjoy reading it.
It's excellent. I'm a big fan of it. I really am. It was actually X that pushed me onto it earlier. I always known about it for a while, and I've known about it from afar. And obviously, I was a fan as well of Overland Sea. So I think I would highly recommend it. And in fact, we're going to put a link in the description below. So if anyone wants to go and have a look at that, go and check it out, and obviously order it up. It's really worth it. Very excellent writing, and as you say, it gives you that a bit more information, and also it actually, I don't know, it keeps you connected to how football, in my opinion, was and how it should be in a little way. You know, I miss the fanzines, and I think it's excellent. It really is worth a read. So, David, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. What we'll do is you'll be back in a few weeks, I think. Is that the plan? You're going to come back in and talk, and we'll hopefully have so much more exciting things and happy things to chat about, David.
Yeah, it's been a really bad January, but I have to say that the best months that we always have are whenever things are going bad at West Ham, our sales go through the roof. And when things are going well, no one seems to want to buy it because no one wants to hear how great things are going. People want to hear what other people think about it when it goes wrong. And I think that's probably the state of our world as it is in terms of everything. But yeah, back on again towards the end of this month, where hopefully we'll have a lot more positive things to talk about.
Absolutely. Cheers, mate.